Hello and welcome back to Podcast with a K. I'm your host Carla with a K, and we are here on this fine Monday evening, which is our new podcast day, or whenever it is you're listening to this, whether it is on WECS 90.1 FM, Twitch, Spotify, Apple Podcast, wherever, YouTube even, wherever it is that you get your shows. That's where we are, and these are the vibes. Today is the first day of Hispanic Heritage Month, and therefore I was thinking, what can I do for Hispanic Heritage Month? And I even thought about just doing the next 4 weeks of the podcast all in Spanish, and I was like, I don't know about that. That's a lot, and I don't feel like I have as many Spanish-speaking guests just at the ready anymore. I feel like I moved forward, and I moved on, and instead of prioritizing and targeting guests based on culture, I was kind of finding my guests based on interest, which for the last so long has been musical artists, which is still the case. I'm still kind of in that phase, all right? That hasn't died out. But I'm feeling that like itch, to do something new and to do something different. And so today's activity is I want to try my hand at fiction podcasting, because I found this, I don't know what to even call it. It's like a choose your own adventure type book, I guess, story or something of the sort. Like I said, I don't exactly even know what to call this, but I basically, all right, it's a link. I'll put the link in the description box down below on the side, wherever it is, in case you want to look at that yourself. But what I found is this like choose your own adventure type website, I guess. It's like a short story, and I thought it was an interesting format to begin with, and I wanted to talk about it. I was like, all right, I'm gonna review it, and then I was like, it's really not that long. What if I do it on the podcast and I just try my hand at fiction podcasting? Because not to toot my own horn or anything, but oftentimes people say that I have a good voice for radio, or I have a good voice for this, or I have a good voice for that. And I'm like, all right, y'all want a good voice? What if I talk for an hour straight? Not on the podcast, not in a story, or sorry, not in an interview format. What if I give the people what they think they want, which is an audiobook, and we go from there? So that is exactly what we're going to do today. And the way that this fits into Hispanic Heritage Month, I didn't check. It just was a happy coincidence. This starts by saying, somewhere in the desert between New Mexico and Arizona, the summer after high school, blah, 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 Mexican Coke. And I was like, Mexican Coke, that counts. So this is getting shoehorned into Hispanic Heritage Month here on Podcast with a K. It won't be in Spanish every week. I might do a Spanish episode here and there and everywhere, but everything will be somehow, in some way, shape, or form, related and or relevant to Hispanic culture. So, without further ado, here we go. If anyone wants to read or play along, I will be sharing that on my screen, if I knew how to do that. And that way, if you so choose, you too can play along and, guide the story. Otherwise, I'm just going to make my choices, and that is how we will go forth and conquer. So here we go. Somewhere in the desert between New Mexico and Arizona, the summer after high school. We left Houston 2 days ago, heading west along the back roads to California. An empty bottle of Mexican Coke kept rolling around the passenger side, and only now, in the dark, did a cool desert breeze start to push away the summer heat. It was our last trip together. Just the three of us. In 2 weeks, Becky would be off at Stanford, Lex at NYU, and me, well, I'd still be in Houston. But for now, the only thing we had to think about were the open road, the starry skies, and the 750 miles left to Santa Monica. Was I driving, was Lex driving, or was Becky driving? I feel like, based on the schools that they're going to and what they're doing, perhaps, let's see. Where is Stanford? Isn't Stanford in California? I think so. All right, so one's kind of staying local-ish. The other one's going all the way to NYU. The one that's most likely to be driving of that group, I would say, would be perhaps, well, me. We're still in Houston, so I would be the one that would still need my car. I was driving. It was my turn, and while I wasn't crazy about it, I wasn't going to be the one who didn't pull my weight. Still, the road was straight and empty, and there wasn't much to do but think. About where you were going, about where we'd been. Neither of those appealed. Maybe if we had some better music. Is it cool if we change the music? I think this is our third Hamilton in 2 days, I said. Would Becky or Lex change the music? It would be Becky to change the music. Lex is going to NYU. That's Hamilton. She's the one that chose it. Becky changed the music. She loved sitting shotgun, controlling the music and the AC, her hands free to keep chatting on the phone. Her boyfriend back in Houston was hilarious, and reading his live text of his Star Wars marathon out loud was the only thing that got us out of Texas. But it was no surprise that this stretch of desert was a dead zone. There would be no relief from the outside world here. All we had was our playlists and each other. In the backseat, Lex had her legs tucked in under her, checking the maps and the route she'd planned. Our first idea had been to drive until we were tired and stop whenever we wanted, eat only local. Lex let us keep all of that, as long as she could add a little bit more structure. Structure like neat, organized itineraries worthy of someone as type A as she was. Still, we were off schedule now, just driving until we found a place to stay. Just us, the red rocks, and the dark sky. I'll never get tired of the desert, or I was so sick of the desert. Well, I read that and I was like, man, that sounds so pretty, so I'll never get tired of the desert. There's something so soothing about the desert, a comfort in seeing something so massive and so old that it feels eternal, even if nothing ever is. And in every desert, there is an oasis. Neon lights cast a green glow on the horizon, rising like a premature dawn. As we got closer, we could see the shape resolve into a giant neon cactus. Below it, the words Cactus Blue Motel blazed before a background of dark desert sky. The Cactus Blue Motel parking lot. As we pulled into the parking lot, empty except for a beat-up sedan that looked like it hadn't moved in decades. Are you sure about this place? I asked Lex. I'm sure we couldn't keep driving much longer, said Lex. We're still on schedule. We'll just get up early, pick up breakfast on the road, and we'll still make it to Meteor Crater before it's too late. Becky rolled her eyes, even as she unbuckled her seatbelt. Yeah, we wouldn't want to be late for the meteors. The rocks won't care if we sleep in. Options. Let's just try and get what rest we can before we go. Sleeping in sounds like a great idea. We should get up early and stay on schedule. I say we say... I like meteors, so I say we should get up early and stay on schedule. I said, as we stepped out of the car. Lex turned to me, lips barely curled in a smile. I smiled back. Becky just let out a sigh. Fine, she said. She knew she was outnumbered. Looking up, I was in the motel sign again. We'd seen several like it on our trip here. Googie architecture, it was called. Swooping lines and visions of yesterday's future. We're going to be looking up that word later. I also don't know how to pronounce that. Is that Googie or Googie? I'm sorry, I'm breaking your immersion, but I broke my own.
Googie.
Googie. Okay. This one was a little bit more boring than most. The sign didn't even seem to be animated. Still, all we needed was a place to stay. We took our bags and we walked into the motel office. Ooh. A scene change. The Cactus Blue Motel lobby. The lobby was an empty square room, cut in half by a long counter that separated manager from guest. Behind the cheap faux wood counter was a single door marked private. Back on my side, there was a rack of brochures, folded and yellowed by wear and time, a vending machine, turned off, and to the left, an open door that led to the rest of the motel. Becky walked up to the brochures, rifling through them with vague interest. Hey Mari, take a look at these. I glanced over, curious. Lex rolled her eyes and moved up to the counter, where an older man stood, pale and utterly forgettable. You girls need something? Yes, Lex said, stepping up. We need a room for the night. What are your rates? Lex was best at handling logistics, but as the oldest, I was the one that actually got the room. I slid my ID across the counter and he grinned. Mary Ellen, cute name. Options. It's Maria Elena. Thanks. I just nodded. I wanted to get this over with. All right, well, me as a person. I've told y'all my story about correcting people and saying my name the Spanish way, so I would personally never be like, it's Maria Elena. I would probably hit it's an avocado. Thanks. I would not nod because that would seem rude. So I would say avocado, thanks. I hate the way my name sounds on American tongues. The A's move forward into the nose, and the E's become sneers. My parents should have thought of this, of the fact that I was born in the US and would live in the US before they left me with a name I'd constantly have to correct people about. But I didn't correct them today. I was just too tired for it. Thanks, I said, not meaning a word. He smiled and handed over a little plastic keychain with bright white letters that read Room 207. There's coffee here after 5. Stairs are down the hall. Pool closed for repairs. We nodded and I could feel how tired we all were. It was time to rest. The Cactus Blue Motel lobby. The motel office was an empty square room, cut in half. Oh, I see. We can look at different things based on what we click. All right. Private. I wasn't going in there. I could read. It was private. Besides, no one answered the door. On my side of the counter, there was a rack of brochures. The brochures advertised a whole range of places, from diners to drive-ins. My personal favorite was the whole column of ads for different mini-golf courses, including Death Metal Mini-Golf, thematically similar but legally distinct Godzilla Mini-Golf, and French Revolution Mini-Golf. The tiny guillotine chopping bowls in half was a nice touch. I took a few. Maybe I could convince Lex to make some detours. A vending machine. Turned off. The vending machine was turned off, but it was quite possibly the strangest thing I'd ever seen. It offered both Coke and Pepsi. This place was weird. And then an open door towards the rooms. It's like I said, you can kind of see it's a really cool format. I'm quite enjoying it. Okay. The Cactus Blue Motel, first floor, lobby and rooms 101 to 103. Dim flickering fluorescence lit up the first floor walkway. A thin corridor cut between the main building and the motel lobby. A printed paper sign, tape curling at the corners, read pool, pointing down into the shadows. Then the rooms. 103, vacant. 102, vacant. 101, vacant. At the corner, the dimly lit stairs and a sharp turn to rooms 104 to 110. And, out into the night, the almost empty parking lot. All right, so now that we can see the format, if you're just now joining us, we're going through a choose your own adventure type story presented in the form of a website. And it's vaguely relevant to Hispanic Heritage Month. It would appear that our character is Hispanic. But also they mentioned Mexican Coke in the first paragraph. So I was like, yeah, that counts. But the way that it works is each page gives you like a paragraph or like a page of the story, and there are different words that are highlighted. If we click on said words, we can, take the story in that way. Sometimes they're choices, and other times they are just kind of like, like side rooms. The same way you would, if you're playing a video game, you get to look at different stuff and be like, I don't want to go here. Wow, this painting looks old type vibes. That's how this works. And like I said, I thought it was a cool format that I thought would translate well to radio. So we're going to keep going through this, I think, and see if we can't make it to the end of the first day. All right. So first things first. Thin corridor cuts the main building and the motel lobby. We just left the motel lobby. A printed paper sign, tape curling at the corners, read pool, pointing down in the shadows. Flies buzzed inside an empty pool, echoing oddly into the night. Beyond it, the desert went on until sky and ground are the same shade of inky deep black. Behind me, the motel stood, looking just as great as its pool. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. Yeah, I wasn't heading out there like this. The stairs led back down to the first floor. To the right, there were 3 rooms. 203, vacant. 202, vacant. 201, vacant. After that, an ice machine sat in the spot where another room might have once been. The rest of the rooms stretch out to the left. There was very little in the parking lot. There was even less to see in the rooms. 110 down to 104, all vacant. I couldn't imagine there'd be much more upstairs besides a bed I could finally sleep in. The other rooms on this floor also held no appeal. Becky's car was sitting in the spot near the west end of the hotel and rooms 104 to 110. There's a broken down sedan parked closer to the office and the other first floor rooms. Other than that, there's no one else in the lot, just dust, gravel, and then the highway. Becky's trusty silver Corolla was now Becky's trusty brown Corolla. Whatever, we'd all pitch in for a car wash once we got back to Houston. See, it's easy to get lost in this story, specifically because you have to remember where you've been and what you visited. But I think it's very cool. To the west, California. East, Houston. North was a motel, and the desert sprawled out into the south, but mostly it was dark, so I wasn't going to wander off. All right, let's make our way back. The hallway stretched back towards the highway. The last fluorescent bulb was broken, throwing the furthest room into shadow. All vacant except for our room in 207. To the right, there were the stairs and the rest of the rooms. The smell of industrial-strength detergent for room 207, a poorly done painting of red rock mesas. It was a bad room, exactly the same as a million other bad rooms and a million of other nowheres, but that didn't make the 2 queen beds look any less inviting. Lex had already dropped her duffel in front of the bed to the right, brushed her teeth, and changed into her sleep shirt. Becky was on the other bed, still on her phone and frowning. You know what? They don't even have Wi-Fi here, she said. What kind of hotel doesn't have Wi-Fi? At least it has AC. Or, hotel is being a little generous, don't you think? At least it has AC, I said. Lex gestured at me as if I had just proved her point. See? It's fine. Besides, it's cheap and it looks pretty clean. What else can you really ask for? Wi-Fi, Lex, said Becky. We can ask for Wi-Fi. If you want to go down to the motel office and ask for it, be my guest, Lex said, pulling up the covers. Me? I'm going to bed. Mari, just turn the lights out when you're done getting ready. Yeah, of course, I said. The no Wi-Fi thing wouldn't be too bad. We'd be out of here by morning after all, and the quicker morning came, the quicker we could keep going. Then again, the trip would end quicker that way too. Ooh, it matters who we fall asleep next to. Are we choosing friendships here? Okay. Becky's gonna be big sleep. Lex is gonna be still awake trying to get Wi-Fi. Let's leave Becky alone. I went to bed next to Lex. She always fell asleep so quickly and woke up the same way, as if she had a switch inside that just flipped on and off. It made sense though, almost like a natural extension of the way she always had a plan and always knew what to do. She could just say to her brain, schedule, sleep at 12 p.m., and the body complied. I admired that about her. I mean, I certainly couldn't do that. I couldn't sleep. Maybe it was because the curtains in the room didn't close all the way, so the room was lit up by the faint haze of the neon outside. Maybe it was the way the LED on the fire alarm lit up at irregular intervals in a pattern I couldn't follow, even though I spent a while watching. Maybe it was the sound of Becky muttering in her sleep. Maybe it was Lex's silence. Maybe it was me. Whatever it was, I wasn't getting any sleep tonight, so I might as well go outside for a bit and get some air. Cactus Blue Motel. Second floor, rooms 203 to 210. You never got skies this clear in Houston. I doubt they happen in New York or Palo Alto either, but in Houston they definitely didn't. The city lights there faded up into the sky, eating up the dim light of the stars until all that was left is blackened clouds. But here, the black was dotted with stars and painted with the bright blue of the Milky Way. The closest thing to a cloud were the thin wisps of smoke, rising from the cigarette of the boy in the parking lot. He looked up at me and waved. Guess I wasn't the only one who couldn't sleep. Downstairs, it was easier to see him as the relic of 1960s nostalgia that he is. All leather jackets, tight jeans, and a vintage bike. He He had an easy smile, and I sat on the curb near his bike looking up to the black sky. Can't sleep? He turned his head, blowing a puff of smoke away from me. Considerate for a smoker. I'm Dean, by the way. Hold on, acting. Maria Elena. And yeah, I can't sleep either, I said. She said she likes her name, said the Hispanic way. We'd met plenty of people on the road so far. I found a comfort in talking to strangers, in the knowledge that it will always be a temporary relationship, that whatever you say would be left in the desert with a boy who probably won't remember your name. So what brings you into the middle of nowhere, Miss Maria? He asked. 3 options. Me and my friends are taking a road trip out to California. Just traveling, you know. Just trying to get away from Houston. Would you tell a stranger where you're going and what you're up to? I would not. Just traveling, you know. Just traveling, I guess. Even though I couldn't sleep, I felt too tired to really explain too much. To be honest, I'd rather just listen and sit in the cold desert night. He seemed to get that. Aren't we all, Miss Maria? He laughed at his dumb little joke. But no, really, I think everyone at a motel is doing one of 2 things. Moving or resting. He took a long drag of his cigarette before dropping the spent butt and grinding it under his boot. You ever get tired, Miss Maria, of moving forward all the time? Like your soul is running out of gas? Yeah, I get that. I thought about the applications, about the mad rush to get into the right school, to prepare the right future, and felt exhausted at the memory alone, and nodded. Sometimes I think you just need to take a break, stay put and do nothing. Just let the universe fill you back up. Above us, the Milky Way cut through the black like of river flowing nowhere. It looked like there were a million stars up there, more than plenty to fill anybody back up. It's not really an option, though, I said. I mean, I'm traveling with my friends. We have a plan. Dean shrugged. That's their problem, but who knows? They might need the break, too. You could always ask them. I think I will. Maybe. Yeah, I said, pushing myself up. Maybe. You gonna head back to bed anytime tonight? Dean smiled and shook his head. The night's just getting started. In fact, he stopped, looking at his wristwatch. The cactus is about to bloom. Here, he gestured out towards the hotel sign, a 3-pronged cactus lit up in tacky neon green, but that's all there ever was. There was no glint or extra neon tubing to herald a bloom, or even any animation. But as I watched, it happened anyway. Neon bloomed into the desert. It started small, like a flickering star, but it began to grow, as if neon tubes were being spawned from nothing. Above the cactus, a blue flower began to grow, petals spread towards the night sky, and the hotel bloomed with it. Dingy railings, now freshly painted, door plaques glimmered, and cars began appearing in the parking lot as if they'd been there all along, and it only took the blue light of the motel sign to make them visible. Dean bathed in the glow and smiled. Worth waiting for, isn't it? 3 options. It's beautiful. What the hell is going on? This has to be a dream. Now, me personally, I'm not often a fan of the this has to be a dream mentality, but if I was experiencing this myself personally, my first thought would be like, I'm dreaming. That wasn't real. I watch too much time travel stuff. I'm dreaming. This has to be a dream, I said. Nothing else made sense. This desert had been an endless plain of nothingness, and here, where I thought there'd been maximum nothing, was something magical, something amazing. You'd never find something like this in Houston. Relatively sure you couldn't find something like this anywhere. Dean smiled, wild and careless, coming alive under the lights just as much as the rest of this place. You'd think that, but no. It's just always this great, no matter how many times you've seen it. How many times have you seen it? I asked. Gosh, I don't know. I think I've lost count by now. He laughed, bright and joyful. In the hallway across from us, lights began to come on inside motel rooms, guests beginning to awaken. But it never gets old. You never get tired of it. That's the beauty of this place. You never get tired. He stood up then, dusting the road off his jeans and reaching up towards the night sky in a single sinuous stretch. You should look around now and make the most of it. See if you can't convince your friends to stay now. I'm scared. Cactus Blue Motel. Parking lot. A neon flower glowed above the sign that read Cactus Blue Motel. It was unattached to any wires, shifting like a living thing with every breath of desert air. The motel itself was lively, as well as both of the sides of the lobby, rooms 101 to 103, and the side where my rooms were, 104 to 110. Becky's car was sitting in a spot near the west end of the motel. The beat-up sedan from before was gone, and replaced with a bright blue Thunderbird. Dean sat next to his motorcycle, the only one on the lot. Even the highway looked fresher, deeper, darker black. Alright, let's start with our options. Above a glowing neon cactus sat a living creature of neon. I looked at it closely as I could, but I couldn't find the structure, the duplicates, anything. The cactus bloom above it was just flowing and growing and shedding beautiful light onto the motel. Becky's car seemed shinier under the cactus bloom, though still just as dirty from the long drive from Houston. I didn't know anything about cars, but I knew this was a nice one. Old, with those classic wings and a stunning blue paint job that seemed to shine from within under the neon lights. I reached out a hand and touched the coat of paint lightly. Just, wow. I think I finally got why people loved cars. Dean looked so at home here, leaning on his motorcycle under the cactus bloom. He let out a puff of smoke like the world's least intimidating dragon and smiled at me. I guess you still have questions? Ooh, we get to ask so many. What's up with the flower? I asked. Do I look like a botanist to you? I don't know. It just turns on at night. Brings the whole place back to life. I pursed my lips. That wasn't an answer. How did you end up here? Dean let out a perfect circle of smoke. It highlighted a flickering star, then faded into the night. Long story short, I was trying to get away from my dad. He wants me to take over the family business. Boring. I decided to go for a drive, and well... You ever think of going back home? Dean laughed. Dad can drag me there himself if he really wants me back. Till then, I'll pass. How long have you been here? Dean smiled, cigarette hanging in his teeth. Oh, since I was 19. He didn't look a day over 20, so I really had to wonder how long he'd been 19. Okay, Twilight reference. What do you think of the motel? It's my favorite spot on this whole damn earth, and that's what I think about it, he said. How come? It just feels right, you know. Outside, the world is all rough edges and blaring lights. Here, everything is fuzzy from the neon. It just feels right. What do you think of the other guests? Dean tilted his head as if I just asked something really weird. Which ones? Well, I haven't met anyone else, I said. Well, get to it. There's 103, 109, 201, and 210. Well, right now. Just ignore anything else you see. They're empty. For real. No more questions. I didn't have any more questions for Dean. Not now. Probably be back later, though. To the West, California. East, Houston. North was the motel, and the desert sprawled out into the south. No one was coming down this dusty road, especially not me by myself. Bright lights with a blue undertone lit up the first floor walkway. A thin corridor cut between the main building and the motel lobby. A printed paper sign, crisp white red pool, pointing towards the sounds of burbling water. Then, the rooms. 103, music, loud but indistinguishable. 102, vacant. 101, aglow, cherry red through shuttered windows. At the corner, the stairs took a sharp room to 104 and 110, and out into the night, the parking lot. Everything about the pool hit just the right note. The water was a brilliant blue under the cactus bloom. The filters bubbled soothingly, filling in the sound of an empty night. Perfect beach chairs, each with a soft towel, lined the pool, and even the chlorine smell was just right, making the night feel clean and pure. Beyond that, the desert stretched out into nothingness. This place really was an oasis. Behind me, the motel stood, looking just as amazing as the pool. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled again. I wasn't going out there for no reason. Behind me, the motel shone, a lone light in the dark. Back in middle school, I joined band with the vague dream of becoming a rock star. I was 11 and I didn't know anything about the real world or real jobs or the failure even of realistic dreams. But when I dreamt about that rock star future, the woman who opened the door was what I would dream of. Wild hair, ripped jeans, wrapped up in a take on the world stance, with a backdrop of drums. Even better, her eyes lit up at the sight of me. "Hey, you're new, aren't you?" she said, starting to grin wildly. I couldn't stop my blush as I nodded. "Awesome! Come in, then!" The beds were pushed up against the wall to make space for the instruments and sheet music spread out on the floor. Introductions went swiftly, seeing as nobody gave me their name. There was the drummer, the bassist, the guitarist, and the singer. Together, they called themselves the band. "You play anything?" the singer asked. "I was in band for a while," I said lamely. I played the flute badly. "Perfect! Over here!" She shuffled me towards the instruments and handed me a guitar. She didn't let me finish as she grabbed my shoulders. "Doesn't matter! We just want your new sound. Fresh, you know?" She was beaming. The drummer counted down with his sticks. I could almost hear in my head, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we played. Even me. The sound just seemed to spill from the guitar. Amateurish, sure, but still recognizable. I couldn't say now what kind of song we played, only that there was music and fury and the thunder of cymbals. In the end, we all flopped down grinning. The singer smiled. "Nice! You just added some great sound. Will you be sticking around to jam with us some more?" "What just happened?" I asked. I didn't know how to play the guitar. Now that the jam session was over, it just felt like dead wood in my hands, but I had been playing. I swore I'd been playing. "Jam session, girl," the singer said. The drummer agreed with a drum riff. "What does that even mean?" "You just let the music flow through you. Make it a part of you, you know?" This didn't bode well for any questions I might want to ask. "How did you end up here?" The guitarist played a riff, slow and then sobbing. The singer spoke over it. "We were touring, just got out of Phoenix and just ended up here. Touring is pretty intense, so we just ended up staying here for a while." The bassist began a beat. The singer continued. "Our manager went on without us, though. He was a bit of a jerk." "How long have you been here?" The drummer counted out the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. "I don't know what year it is," the singer said. 2016, I said. "Dude, we passed Y2K! Awesome! Is the world still okay? Didn't explode or anything, did it?" "Well, that dated them nicely." "Yeah, the world's fine." "What do you think of the motel?" Here, for the first time, there was dissonance. An angry riff from the guitarist, glee from the bass, and silence on the drums. It's better than touring," the singer said. "We needed time to work on our next record, though." "How's that going?" Silence from the band. What do you think of the other guests?" Mournful strings, a jazz beat. "Well, the lady upstairs plays some great jazz, and the Don has some bachata we like, but the rest of them don't really jam well. And never ask 109 for lyrics. He's just not very good. 201's never come to our shows either," said the singer. A sudden cymbal, a crash, like lightning. "Oh, yeah! And Dean, now there's a groovy dude. He's always been great about coming to jams." I didn't have any more questions. "Come jam with us whenever," the singer said. The rest of them seemed to agree in their silence. Man, you guys! Wow. Let's end at our room. We'll go upstairs first. The stairs led back down to the first floor. To the right, there were 3 rooms. 203 was vacant. 202 had a parked housekeeping cart blocking the walkway. 201, do not disturb. That was pretty easy for now, considering that the cart blocked it. After that, an ice machine sat in the spot where another room might have once been. The rest of the room stretched out to the left. New cars filled the parking lot. 110 was vacant. New life filled the rooms. In 109 there were voices, but from a TV. They just didn't sound real. 108 through 104 were vacant. The way upstairs was now brightly lit and welcoming. The other rooms on the floor were also ripe for exploration. The voices got louder as I got closer to 109 and then died right as I was passing the door. It opened. The man in room 109 was tall and white and thin. His sweater had elbow patches. His glasses had tape. He looked startled to see me. "Oh, you're new, aren't you?" I barely nodded when he smiled. "Excellent. Could I please have a moment of your time? I'm working on a new manuscript, see, and I would love to get a fresh set of eyes." I mean, we're saying yes to all the other experiences, so I feel like we gotta say yes to this one too. "Sure." Before I could answer, he just burst into a grin as if I'd said yes. "Great, just a second." He turned back into the room, rustling, and came out with about 3 pages. They were typewritten on a real typewriter and still smelled like pen corrector and ink. "Well?" And the highway, black like coffee in the diner where I'd met her, stretched out like a slip and slide made of asphalt. Well, I'd read worse, but I'd read some really bad fan fiction. He didn't let me answer before he spoke again. "Oh, well, it's not finished," he said. "I still have a lot to write." "How much?" That, at least, he let me ask. He shrugged. "Can't put a number on art." "Yeah, maybe it'd be best if I just asked him some questions." "How did you end up here?" I asked. "Oh, just stopped here on the highway on my way out to New York. I'm going to publish a novel there as soon as I'm done." "Didn't know you had to be in New York to publish, but that's none of my business." "How long have you been here?" He paused, tapping on the pages to the bottom of his lip. "A few years, I think." His wardrobe said a few decades. "I'm not sure, though. Time's a little odd here, you know." "I don't." "Oh, well, you will." "What do you think of the motel?" "Oh, it's great. Such amazing inspiration. I'd call it my muse. There's just so much to write about here." I tried to think of another question to ask quick before he kept going. "What do you think of the other guests?" He wrinkled his nose. "Odd sort. The woman smoking out on the balcony has terrible taste in literature, as does the boy in the parking lot. Come to think of it, the band does too. Really, the only one with any taste at all is up in 201. Sure. I'd never accept a book recommendation from 201 now, that's for sure." I was done asking him questions. "Oh yes, well, so much more to write. Do knock any time and you can read my latest drafts." I nodded and walked away quickly. The hallway stretched back towards the highway, brightly lit all the way down. 210, a woman sat by the open door, smoking. She was sitting on the floor, legs dangling through the railings. Her room door was open, spilling jazz onto the hallway. She wore a slip, a string of pearls, and she was smoking. I mean, sure, she had a cigarette in her hand, and a pack of Marlboros next to her, but that wasn't what I meant. She was actually smoking. Her face was shrouded in smoke. It curled up from below her chin, obscuring her features with a gray cloud. When she spoke, scattered embers lit up inside it. "Take a picture. It'll last longer." We have 2 options. Do you know that your face is, Or, well, excuse me, but I think there's reason to stare. I feel like she knows. "The face thing? I suppose. Don't worry about it. You knew?" I nodded. "Yeah, me and my friends," she scoffed. "We'll see how they hold up. They got any reason to be sticking around?" Becky and Lex both had futures waiting out there. Fancy colleges and lots of plans. "No, not really." "They'll probably check out tomorrow then. But you look like someone with a reason to stay. Are you?" "I don't know," I said. "Oh, you do, but you don't want to admit it." She blew out a puff of smoke from her puff of smoke. It looked pretty weird. "You should think about it, though. It's pretty nice. It's not like you need to pay for it." I stopped. "What?" "Yeah, no cost after night 1. Or did you think we all had the cash to stick around?" I hadn't thought of it, but obviously she knew plenty about the motel. Maybe I should ask her stuff. "How did you end up here?" I asked. "Same way you did, honey, by car," she said. Well, that was helpful. "How long have you been here?" She shrugged. "I'll never have to buy new smokes, so who knows how time moves here. I just get a fresh box every time I wake up." "You know that stuff will kill you." She laughed. "I'd like to see it try." "What do you think of the motel?" "It's just swell." I couldn't tell if she was being sarcastic or not. It's pretty hard since she didn't have a face. "What do you think of the other guests?" She twitched her fingers, dropping ash down onto the floor. The band downstairs plays bad music, but Dean's some nice eye candy when he comes out to the lot. She waved at him down in the parking lot. He raised a cigarette in greeting. The guy in room 109 is pretentious, but a harmless idiot, really. Never met the guests in 201. They keep to themselves mostly. Another tap, more ash. Then again, so do I. I didn't have any more questions for now. She raised a hand as I walked away. I thought it would be a wave, but instead she took another drag. Couldn't tell if she was looking at me go. Back to our room. I could start with Becky. I'd been friends with Becky forever. Our moms worked together, and we lived near enough that there were embarrassing pictures of the two of us reaching back to when we were in diapers. We started school together, paired up in class, cried in each other's bedrooms. But despite all that, Becky always managed to throw me for a loop. I hadn't seen it coming when she dyed her hair blue. I never expected the way she threw herself into AP science classes. I knew Becky, sure, but I never held the illusion that I could predict Becky. But I knew I could use logic, but I knew she'd listen to me, but I knew she could use the break too. I feel like Becky has given us proof that she would listen. We had the advantage of time, of closeness. She'd hear me out. I just knew it. I opened the door to find she was on the other side, like she was about to open it as well. Mari, come in! You won't believe this, she said, yanking me inside the room. It looked exactly the same as before. Same painting of Red Rock Mesa, same weird colored motel comforter, same ancient blocky TV, except now it was on. Look, Becky pointed at the screen. Kristen Chenoweth was running around a colorful pie shop. Nice, I didn't know they were playing reruns of Pushing Daisies. Becky shook her head. They aren't. It's season 3. I stopped and looked back at the screen. But it got canceled after season 2. Or Becky's the one who owns the DVDs. Guess I was wrong. That's such a weird thing to say. Let's do the first one. But it got canceled after season 2, right? I said, half sure, half a question. It was, Becky said, tossing herself onto the bed and clutching the remote in glee. It was the most excited I'd seen her since she got her acceptance letter. I don't really know how it works, but I'm not exactly going to complain. I peered over at the TV. Maybe they had more seasons of Veronica Ma. No, I had to focus. Veronica Mars. Do you think we can convince Lex to stick around for an extra day or two, Mari? She left here as soon as the blue light came on, and I don't think she's seen this. We don't need to actually make it to California, right? Becky clutched at my hands, desperate. You should ask her. She never says no to you. She always says no to me, I said. She sometimes doesn't say no to you, Becky countered. Her eyes were bright. She wanted this. Badly. I'll see what I can do, or maybe you could help me convince her. I'll see what I can do. Maybe you could help me convince her? I mean, Pushing Daisies is pretty great, I said. I had very little confidence in anyone's ability to make Lex do anything, but at least this way the blame wouldn't end up all on me. Becky shrugged. She likes you better, and I'm pretty sure she's still mad that I ate the last barbecue chip yesterday. She wouldn't hold a grudge like that, I said. Becky looked unimpressed. Okay, well, she wouldn't hold it this long. Besides, you have your reasons, too. Becky smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. And I had a flash, a moment where I realized I was her best friend and I didn't know her at all. Just see what you can do, okay? She asked. All right. I'll see what I can do. All right. We're nearing that time, so let's do a music break and discuss, all right? We have begun the show with American Girl by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Next up is Pink Houses by John Mellencamp. Nice. Okay, so we went back to the motel lobby and now we have new clickable options. Before, the door that said private we couldn't access and also there was nobody there. Now we've clicked on it. Someone was speaking behind the door. A deep voice, warm like a desert night, and then a higher, smoother tone that I recognized. Lex. I couldn't make out what she said, but her voice was unmistakable. I knocked. The first voice chimed in, responding to Lex and not to me. It sounded like a pretty intense conversation. I'd come back when I had more stories to convince her to stay, or I knocked again. I would knock again. I knocked and they stopped talking. The door opened to reveal the manager, a vivacious older Latino, eyes glimmering under the blue light. He looked completely different from the man that had rented out the room to us. lively, where the other was pale and tired. Behind him, Lex sat at the desk, looking smug. "Maria Elena! Welcome, welcome," he said, my name flowing smoothly from his lips. "Lex, why don't we finish this up later? Explore for a while, get to know the motel. There's no rush at all, you know." Lex stood. The veritable cat had gotten the cream. "I know. I still don't think I'll change my mind." The manager laughed and moved aside, letting Lex out of his cramped little office. "Yes, I can certainly see that still. Spend some time with your friend. Enjoy. I'll be here until morning." "Thank you, Don Achilles." Her mouth twisted wrongly around the Q sound. High school Spanish and staying over at my place had never been enough to lose Lex's accent. Sorry, that would have been Don Aquiles. Aquiles. "You can just call me the Don. Most people do," he replied, in an easy way I was familiar with. We shared a moment, two people with names unpronounceable in English. "Have a nice evening, girls." He shut the door, and Lex turned to me, eyes bright. I'd come here to convince her to stay, but to be honest, it didn't seem like she needed a lot of convincing. I asked what she thought about the motel. "So, what do you think?" I asked, trying to feel her out. I'd known her long enough to read her, but I still wanted to be sure she wouldn't default back to our old itinerary. "It's amazing, isn't it? I don't know why it didn't come up in any of my research." "Probably because it's a magic motel," I teased. Lex rolled her eyes and nudged me. "Don't be facetious, you know what I mean. Still, stuff like this, well, just doesn't exist. Not for people like us." "People like us?" She nodded. "You know, ordinary people." "I don't think you're ordinary." "I know what you mean." "Well, it obviously does." "Well, it obviously does." No matter how much my mind wanted to deny it, the reality of it was here, as bright as neon. This place was just ever so slightly skewed, like a real motel seen through a funhouse mirror. "Still, we must be here for a reason," she said, leaning back on the counter. "Maybe the universe just figured we needed a break?" I know I did. Lex looked away, out towards the parking lot and the clear night sky. She looked tired. The trip had run her down as well, I guessed. Yeah, maybe it did. Lex looked away. Okay, I asked her what she thought about Don Achilles. She'd spent some time in the office with him, obviously. He's nice, but a bit stuck behind the times. I think he needs someone to freshen up the place, bring it into the 21st century. You know, he doesn't even have a website. I don't think it needs a website. "Mari," she let out a breath. "It's a hotel with a magical neon flower where time doesn't even work right. Trust me, look at the clocks. And no one knows about it. You don't just let something like that slide." I wasn't sure I agreed, but I could see the glint in Lex's eyes, the bulldog tenacity that helped her get ahead. Once she had the idea in her head, it was hard to shake her off. I asked about Becky. "Well, have you spoken to Becky?" Lex shook her head. "She's been acting weird for a while, and she wanted to stay in the room after the blue light turned on. I think something's going on." I frowned. I hadn't really noticed anything. "Like what?" Lex shrugged. "I'm no psychic, but she obviously doesn't want to talk about it, or else she would have. It's not like we have that much to do on the drive, right?" I left her to keep exploring. "I think I'm going to walk around a bit more, just get a feel for the place," I said. Lex nodded. "Yeah, make sure you talk to all the guests. I'll do the same and later we can brainstorm. I want to come to the dawn with a bunch of ideas to really shake this place up." I heard a cart rumble down the hallway above us. Frankly, I didn't think the motel really needed much change, but as usual, I'd do what she asked. Okay, all right. So that brings us up to speed on our first days and first impressions. I think we pick this up like an episodic. We'll do part 2 next time, and then we'll just do that until it's over. We don't currently have any interviews lined up for the podcast as it stands. There's some in the works, but nothing scheduled. So I think as far as Hispanic Heritage Month goes, I want to read this story. You saw the bit about Maria Elena and Don Aquiles. Don Aquiles. So I feel like this is Hispanic Heritage Month adjacent, you know, and in a way that I like it, where it's not like preachy in your face, Mexico flags everywhere, which is who I am as a person, don't get me wrong. But it's okay to, care about other things and like other things. So I think that is where I leave you today. You've been listening to Podcast with a K, and for Podcast with a K, I'm your host, Carla with a K. Signing off, I now return you to your regularly scheduled programming on WECS 90.1 FM, or, whatever it is you were listening to on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or YouTube or, wherever it is you're watching this. Anyways, we have one final song left to sign off with, and that'll be Cuando Sale la Luna by Pedro Infante. Have a fantastic week, and happy Mexican Independence Day upon recording this. All right, get out of here. Goodbye.